All right. Comer and salir are two verbs. What should we notice right away about them? They are both what? What are both of these verbs? What form are they in? Are they conjugated? Are they conjugated? Someone. It's not Monday, and it's not Friday, and it's not hump day, so let's try to interact. It's not what? Right, so that makes it what? Anyone know where the rag is? I'm not seeing it. Is it? Oh, yep. Okay, so it's not conjugated, which means it is what? It is called an thank you, an infinitive. And each of these infinitives are what kind of infinitive? Which categories? The ER and the IR. Okay? So the reason we're looking at these verbs is because they are representative of other ER and IR verbs and how they will conjugate. They're kind of like the pattern example. Okay? So let's get the conjugations on the board and look at them, okay? So starting with the endings, we have E. Make sure I don't mess this up. Iste. Yo. The accent is on the O. Emos? Yes. Oops, I got an extra M. There we go. Istes. Sorry. Yeah, that's right. Istes and iaron. Okay, and just to compare it, yesterday it was fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, and fueron. Okay, so this one has an I every single time. This one is a little irregular, especially in the third person. Okay? Also, these have accents. These have no accents for ser and you. Alright? So we've got these endings, and then we add the root. Comi, comiste, comió, comimos, comisteis, comieron. So let's say these, okay? Comí, comiste, comió. Say, comí, comiste, comió. Okay, and again, these are in the preterite, so what does comí mean? It's I, because it's first person singular, so I what? Ate, right. Past tense of to eat, right. So comí, comiste, comió, comimos, comisteis, comieron. And then the endings for salir are going to be identical. So that means that the ER endings and the IR endings are the same for preterite, for regular preterite, ER and IR verbs. So it's going to be add the root and then add the ending. Salí, saliste, salió, salimos, salisteis, salieron. So let's say these together now. Salí, saliste, salió. Salí, saliste, salió. Salimos, salisteis, salieron. So say that. Salimos, salisteis, salieron. Okay, good. So let's talk about a few things. Let's see. As far as pronunciation, let's talk about diphthongs, okay? And then I want to talk about similarities to present indicative. Okay? So for the pronunciation for diphthongs, can someone remind me, diphthongs are something that we talked about in the 3 rules of pronunciation or pronouncing the accent and the vowels and stuff that we talked about. Does anyone remember what a diphthong or what I said a diphthong was?
It's when the 2 vowels are together and form one sound.
Exactly, yeah. So when you have 2 vowels, which generally each vowel will be its own syllable, or at least each vowel will be the focal point of each syllable in a word. So let's take this one for example. We have 3 vowels, A, I, and O in salimos. Look up here. A, I, and O in salimos. So let's count the syllables. For each vowel, it's salimos. Okay? So 3 vowels. However, in this case, we have 2 vowels here and 1 and 2 here. E-I is 2 vowels that come together to create a diphthong. So it's not 4 syllables, which would sound like this. Salisteis. You hear that? How it's 4 syllables. Salisteis. That's 4, and that's wrong. Because EI makes a diphthong. So it's 1 sound, which is 1 syllable, which sounds like this. Salisteis. And teis is different than tes. If there was no I, then it would sound like this. Salistes. Salistes, which is not salisteis. You guys hear the difference? Okay, so that's important because if you say salistes, that's not the right word. Okay, because it's not spelled the right way. So salisteis. All right. Does anyone remember what the 3 rules of accents were? What was the first one? Anyone remember? I think this is like the first thing I teach in Spanish 1. So it's been a while. Okay. First rule is that the accent falls on the, I'm going to use a big word, penultimate syllable. Anyone know what penultimate means? Yes, second to last. Good. So the accent, when there's no accent mark, will fall on the second to last syllable, which in Spanish is most of the time going to be the second to last vowel, right? So let's come back to salimos. Which vowel is the second to last vowel? Counting backwards, 1, 2. So it's the I. So there's no accent mark, but you still say the accent on the I. Salimos. So salimos or salimos are both wrong because the accent falls on the I. Salimos. Okay? Anyone remember what the second one is? It gets back to what we were just talking about. Diphthongs. Diphthongs are one syllable. Okay, so that means you don't say salisteis. And then the second to last vowel is E. So you would not say salisteis. Diphthongs right here is one syllable, which means you count backwards and count this one as a single one. So instead of 1, 2, accent on the E, you count that as 1. 1, 2, accents on the I again, because that's a diphthong. So you count it as one syllable. So the accent here would be salistes. Even though I is the third vowel, it's the second syllable. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if you're still like, I don't quite understand what you're saying. Raise your hand if you're like, I understand and I grasp it. So raise your hand if you're in the middle. Okay. We're trying to differentiate between a syllable and a vowel. Okay? A syllable is one sound. But one sound can be made up of multiple vowels, right? So when we say we're counting back, we're not just counting back the vowels, the letters. Like in this case, we are. 1, 2, the accent falls on the I. We're actually trying to count backwards the syllables, the sounds. And some of those sounds are going to be multiple vowels. So we don't want to count backwards for the accent. 1, 2 to the I. We want to count backwards the sounds. 1 sound, 2 sounds. So another way of doing it is instead of counting the letters, we could break up the word. Sa, li, mos. 1, 2, 3 syllables in that word. Okay? Or this one, salistes. Sa, lis, tes. There's 3 syllables in that. So even though there's more vowels in this one than this one, there's still only 3 syllables. When we're counting back syllables, we're counting diphthongs as a single syllable. Okay, number 3. What was the last rule of accents?
Accent marks override.
Right. Accent marks override. Good. So that means that if there's an accent mark, then you're going to say the accent on that letter. So let's take this one for example, right here. Where is the syllable break between which letters? On this one here. So where would I draw this line to break this word up into 2 syllables? Right, between the A and the L. So that means the accent should fall on which syllable? The first one, because the first one is the second to last in this case. Okay? So that means normally, if it was spelled S-A-L-I, you would say what? How would you say it? Sali. Good, perfect. However, the accent mark is on the I, which means you disregard these first rules and you say the accent on the I, even though it's not the second to last. So it would be what? Instead of sali, it would be what? Yeah, sali. Okay, if you're confused on like, well, how do I actually emphasize it? What does that mean, Mr. Grafe? There's 2 main ways. One is louder, and second is longer. Okay, so listen to how long I say the A if I accent the A. Sali. Sali. It's a little longer than the I. If I switch it, sali. Sali. Hear how I hold the I just a moment longer? But also listen to the noise level. Sali. It's like this. I'm going to illustrate with my hand. So look. Sali. I come down like an end of a sentence. Sali. And then if I switch it, sali. See how I get louder? It's like Muhammad Ali's name. You would never say Muhammad Ali. That doesn't sound right. It's the same reason. Okay? Okay, so good. That's emphasis, louder and longer. Accent marks override, which means you're going to emphasize the syllable, not specifically the vowel, but actually the syllable, in order to say it correctly. So what about this one? This is where I'm getting to with this. Tell me what's going on. What do we want to look at? How many syllables are here? Let's say this word again. Let's listen carefully. Salió. I'm sorry, that was wrong. Salió. Salió. Everyone say it. Salió. Salió. Everyone. Good, okay. How many syllables are here? Aiden says 2. Okay, Aiden, where do we want to put the line? In front of the L. Okay, 1. So you said there's 2. Sa and lió. Lió, right? Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay. So I think there's actually 3 when there's an accent, because the accent overrides. And it overrides the fact that diphthongs are 2 syllables. So you're right, if there was no accent, then the accent would fall on the A because that's a diphthong. So you count 1, 2, accent would be on the A, and you would say salió. The I-O making like a Y-O sound. Salió. Okay? Salió. 2 sounds. Sal or sa and lió. Now, because there's an accent on the O, we're actually accenting the O specifically, not the I-O together. So it's not accenting the yo sound, it's accenting the O sound, different from the I. So now that's different because there are other words where the A and the I or the other vowel and the I are together. Like for in the second person plural of the indicative. So let's take, this is an IR verb, so let's use an ER verb. Use comer. Yeah, let's use comer, because look, it's the same problem, right? Salió, comió. The accent here, yo, is that 1, 2, or comió, or comió? Right, is it 3? So if we put comer, and we have this in the second person plural, for you all eat, how do we conjugate that? What's the ending? Huh? What's the ending for present tense, you all eat, from comer? So this is an ER verb, o, es, e, hemos, eis, en. How do we conjugate comer for you all eat in the present tense? Regular ER endings verbs. Huh? En. That's 1, 2, 3, and then plural. En is down here. So that would be they eat. We're looking for this one. Ace, right. So coméis. Notice here the accent is on the E. And so you're accenting this vowel because you're not trying to separate the second one. Coméis. It is 1 syllable. But up here, we're separating the second one from the first one. And so you're going to say comí, and then you accent the O, comió. So in this case, the accent mark is overriding not only the second to last vowel, syllable, but it's also overriding the fact that the diphthong is a diphthong. It's changing the diphthong from yo to eo, which is 2 syllables. Okay? So that's important because I want you guys to say these words comió, not comió. So there's no Y sound. It's comió. So can everyone say that? Say comió. Right. Okay, any questions? All right. So how do I ask, if I want to ask Tyra, what did you eat? How do I say that? You don't have to be the one to answer. Anyone? How do you say, what did you eat? Sorry? Comiste means you ate. How do I ask the question? That's the right verb.
Just add a question mark at the end.
Comiste? Comiste? That would be, did you eat? Very close. And that's great. What do I have to add if I want to say what? Yes, exactly. Que comiste. So that's all you've got to do. It's 2 words, because comiste gives the idea of you ate in the past, and then I'm adding the question word what. So what did you eat? What did you eat? 4 words in English doesn't have to be 4 words in Spanish. Okay? Good. How do I say, let's say you have a sister or a brother and you get a ride with them to school, or they get a ride with you, and somebody asks you when you left, and you turn to your brother or your sister, how do you ask them, when did we leave? Because remember, salir means to leave. So how do you ask them, when did we leave? How do you say when? Huh? No, go ahead, guess. ¿Por qué? Very good guess. That's why. And it was one of the question words in the same list, so that's good. How do you say when? It's very similar to the word for how much, which is also similar to the word in English like counting. And then the word when is that Michael Bublé song I played. Da, 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 da. I think I heard it. Who said that? Cuando. Yes. Okay, so cuando is when. How do you say we left? Salimos. Exactly. Good. So now we've got some things here we've talked about. ¿Qué comiste? What did you eat? How would you respond to this question? How would you respond to ¿Qué comiste? How would you say, I ate something? How do you say I ate? I can't hear you. Como is I eat. Is that what you said? Como? Right. Comí. Perfect. So comí. And then here's just some simple vocab. If you just want to say I ate something, algo means something. Okay? Anyone know how to say breakfast? Yes, desayuno, perfect. Okay, good. So I ate something, I ate breakfast. There's a few words for you. So comí desayuno. So ¿qué comiste? What did you eat? Comí desayuno. I ate breakfast. Okay, good. What about cuando salimos? How do I say time? Do you guys remember how to use time? So time is referring to hora. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? So what hour? Hora. H-O-R-A. Hora. Which means that if you're going to give a number to hora, it's an adjective, which makes the number plural. So like 9. So 9 hours. Hours becomes plural. So if you're going to say at a certain time, you've got to keep in mind the singular or plural. Okay, if it's 1 o'clock, it's singular. If it's 2 or to 12 p.m. or a.m., then it's going to be plural. So we would say, and it's feminine because hora is feminine. So we would say a la una, or 1 o'clock, or a las dos, for 2 o'clock. Sorry, 2 o'clock. Or let's say a las nueve, for 9 o'clock. So go ahead and turn to your friend and ask both questions to each other. Respond with an answer. So let's just practice the time one first. Cuando, and then you could say, when did you leave? You could say, when did you leave for school? Cuando saliste para escuela? When did you leave for school? To school. Para is the idea of for, but for directed at something like to school. So, cuando saliste para escuela? Then you would respond, I left at whatever time you left at. Okay? So go ahead and turn to your friend, ask that question, and then I have one more thing I'd like to point out. Make sure you ask both questions at some point. Okay, go ahead and turn to somebody else and ask the same questions. Riley, make sure you ask someone the questions. Riley. Okay, last thing I want to say is just to point out some of the funny things that happen when we start conjugating, and the grammar and the language is trying to create differences so that you know when you're talking about past tense or you know when you're talking about present tense. But sometimes, because of the rules that they employ, the conjugations actually become identical to present and past tense. Can anybody tell me which of these many conjugations up here are identical to a present tense conjugation of the same verb? Which verb? Like which conjugation? Go ahead and say it. I can't hear you.
Or you say we.
We what?
Oh, I don't know. I can't really see that word.
She's close, but I need more need you to be more specific. Both? Is it both of these? Both we forms? Okay, that's all right. You're right. The we, is this identical to the we form of comer? And is this identical to the we form of comer? That's what you specified, the we, and you're right. Is it one or both, though? Try to remember how to conjugate the we form in the present tense of both comer and salir. How do you say we eat? So it's an ER verb. So we conjugate with E endings, right? So o es e comemos. Because it's an E verb, comemos. So that's where it's different, right? Comimos, you automatically should know if somebody says comimos, either they're a new Spanish learner and they don't remember that you conjugate all the verbs with an E unless it's in the boot for an I verb, right? So if it says comimos, they're getting confused because it's an ER verb and they should have said comemos. Or they know that it's past tense and they should say comimos because that's what they meant to say. But with salimos, it is identical. Salimos is the same in preterite as it is in the present tense indicative. Because it's an IR verb, and IR verbs conjugate just like ER verbs, but only in the boot. Outside the boot, they conjugate like an IR verb would. So sal, drop the IR and add IMOS. And there's no accents. So this one happens to be identical to the present tense, which is just something unique. Okay? Any questions about today? Brayden, you didn't have yesterday, so does that make sense as far as preterite and the conjugations and stuff? All right. Okay, so you have some homework. Go ahead and start it if you haven't already. And ask me if you have any questions about how to do it, and I'll be happy to come over and help you. Okay? All right.